Hey folks, welcome you all to another lesson. So in the next span of few days, I'll be talking about Python programming to a level what QA should be knowing to get started with Selenium scripting. And we will discuss more on Selenium fundamentals, the scripting part, and how to set up the framework. And we'll eventually move to Git and scheduling it using CI/CD and triggering your build. So we'll go and touch base those topics as well. But for the next few days, I'll be talking about how to get started with Python. The installation part we'll try to cover it today, and then we'll try to switch to Python basics in the upcoming videos. So in the upcoming videos, I'll try to modularize the videos in such a way that you get to watch a single topic in a single video. Okay. So, and you don't have to watch everything at once, but I'll try to modularize it. Yeah, at the same time, if you have any questions or if you want me to cover some additional topic, you can definitely drop me a note. I'll try to have that in my videos as well. I'll try to keep my videos in such a way that after a certain topic is covered, I'll try to help you out with the interview questions that you can face and the kind of questions that you can expect around that topic, okay, or the challenges that you may face in that topic. So I'll try to cover them as well, apart from the overview of the topic. Yep. Let's get started with Python first. And yep, so here's what Python is. So if you are aware about what Python's history is, I suggest you skip this part, but I'm trying to keep this a little brief. I'll give a little brief here about what Python is. So it was started by Guido van Rossum 1991, and it was released as a version 0.9.0, and then Python 2 was released in 2003, was in 2008. And the recent releases, I'll try to cover the release in a different in the next slide probably, and then I'll see what needs to be added on the release. But uh, moving on from the release part, so it's a high level and interpreted programming language. So if you are aware about what high level and interpreted programming is, you'll have an idea about how Python works. So there's another language called assembly. So assembly is the language which is very close to the raw machine code. So it's probably the most low level language you can ever get. And when you talk about JavaScript, JavaScript is again one language where there are a lot of layers. So in JavaScript, you won't find assembly level code there. You will just say document.click, or say you'll try to click on something. So this clicks gets translated to a machine level language, and then it is interpreted by your processor. Whereas in low level, you will directly write code which directly gets interpreted by your processor, and those things are directly converted into a movable action or whatever command you are trying to pass it to the processor. Okay. But on a high level language, you don't need to understand those many interpretations. So in a high level, you will have the command, you will write it, it gets translated. You will have layers of abstractions where you won't find the actual code that is working with the processor, but instead you will have some code which gets translated into meaningful codes down the layers, and then your actions is performed. Okay. So now if we talk about interpreted programming language, so what does interpreted means? So interpreted is a common word that you'll find in programming, especially with Python, because Python works based on an interpreter. The language that uses an interpreter is designed in such a way that it executes the code line by line using an interpreter. Okay. And then and there is a different category of code, different category of language, which is which is compiler. Okay. So if you try to, so there are two things. One is interpreted language, other is compiled language. So compiled languages like C++ require a compiler to translate the entire code into machine language before execution. Okay. On the other hand, the interpreted languages, they execute the code line by line. So so in a programming, from a programming perspective, the ones that are getting compiled will obviously have a faster execution time, and the ones which is getting interpreted will have a longer runtime. Reason being, it's being read line by line, and then at the same time it's getting translated, and then the compiler, and then the actual code execution is taking place. From here, what we know, the Python is a high level language and is an interpreted programming language. So high level means there are layers of abstractions, and interpreted means the code runs using an interpreter and it reads the code line by line. So just an overview here. Why popular? So easy to read syntax and making it beginner friendly, because most of the Python level language is like normal English. So if you want to print something, you just have to write print. Whereas if you see in C, C++, Java, there are different set of commands that you have to write, say C in, C out, and then a system.out.print. So there is large community and vast libraries for multiple applications. Okay. So again, interpreted language, there is no compilation needed, and boosting the development speed. If you want to translate it to what I just explained, so there's no compiler here, and the development speed is boosted. The reason being there is no compilation needed. Then cross-platform compatibility. It works on Windows, Mac OS, and with Linux it comes pre-installed. The uses of Python, it's for web development, data science, machine learning, automation and scripting, game development, embedded systems, and many more. Okay, but our focus would be mostly on test automation side. We are not going to touch the other aspect of it. Yeah, moving forward. So yep, so here it is. We have the Python version. So if I click on the Python version, oh, it went to my other screen. This is the year on year. This is the year on year growth that we see here. So right now we are in the early 2025. So if you see this blue line over here, so this points to the current environment, the current build, or it overlaps with the current build that is being used in the production. So there are other things also here. If you want to explore more, you can always go down. They have explained what they mean by feature, pre-release, bug fix, and okay. So this is also an interpretation here. Like this one, 3.13 was released 4 months ago, and 3.12 was released a year and 4 months back, and it supports, and I mean the support for it ends in 1 month and 3 weeks. Okay, but the security updates will still come in until the next 3 years and 9 months. Okay, going back to our slide, to download Python and the IDEs. Yep, you go to Python. Yep, to download Python, you go to python.org, and from here you have your this is the official Python page where you want to download. Go to your downloads and then just select the version that you want. If you click on this one, it automatically starts the download. So I already have it installed, so I'm not going to download it again. But yep, that's how you just download it. You just download and you start the installation. Now after installing Python, we need an IDE as well. IDE is nothing but an environment and development environment where you want to actually script or you want to write your code. However, Python can also be written in a single notepad and saved as .py file and executed. But IDE gives you that comfort of debugging, and there are a lot of features that an IDE comes along with than a plain notepad. There are quite a few IDEs in the market, but right now I'm going to focus on my PyCharm. So PyCharm comes as a paid tool as well, and as well as the community version is for free. It's an open source tool again. So if you go to JetBrains here, let me open up the site for you. Okay. So if you go to JetBrains site, you'll find PyCharm here, PyCharm Professional. If you are not here, then I suggest you go to, let me start from the home page. So you come here, you go to the development tool, and then from here you select PyCharm, and from here you click on the download button. Now if you try to download this one, this is a 30 days trial period, so you don't have to download the professional one, but scroll down and come to the community edition, click on the download button here. It will download an exe file again. So it will start the download here, and then just install the exe file and you are good to go. Alright guys, so what I did next was it asked me a prompt to restart my system once the installation was completed. So I had restarted my system and then I launched my PyCharm. And what we need to do here is I need to create a new project here. Or in case if you are working in a project in a company, you would already have a repository with you. So you just have to go here and clone a repository. We'll talk about this later in the video. Before we get there, so there are a few customizations that you can do here. So if you want to adjust the lights here, say I want to go for a darker version, and then there are other things as well. You just have to play around this configuration if you want to. If you go to plugins, so this has a list of plugins that is already installed in my PyCharm, and on marketplace you can see what plugins are available. You can just type in here and just install a new one. Let's get back to projects and we'll click on new project here. Okay, so here what it is asking is the location where you want to create your Python project. So I'll go here, say I want to create I want it in a different drive. Let's say it's my D drive, and I'll say something called a study. I have a folder study here. I want let's say Python. Yeah, so Python. So from here I'll go and create a new path. I'll say Python with Selenium. All right, and I'll select this folder as my base project path. So this folder would be referred as my project location. Now, if you want, you can create a Git repository as well. It has an inbuilt Git repository settings. You just have to log into your repository and you can directly push the code and pull the code from PyCharm itself. This is one thing. And the second thing is, since Python is interpreter based language, so you need to set your interpreter here. Since it is already detected here, I'm not going to change anything here. If not, then you will have to search the bin folder for your Python so that it can recognize that Python already is installed in your system. So this is done, and I'll just click on create. Let me pull it back here again. Okay. And what I want to do next is to create a Python file. So I'll just go here, right click, new, and I'll say a Python file. I'll name it as my file 1. Okay, and I'll say hit enter. All right, now this is the place where I have to script. This is my file 1. So what I want to write here is print. What do I want to print? I'll just say print hello world. All right, so now to execute this, you have to go here, click on this play button, run myfile.py. Now if you see in the log, it's generating a output text of hello world. Now this is one way how we can execute this. So there are multiple ways of executing this. You can either run it through the terminal, you can run it through the command prompt, or the one that we just saw. So this is one way. We are going to refer to the other ways as well. Okay, so for the next one, we are going to run it from command prompt. Okay, so let's open command prompt first, and the first thing that we want to do here is run a code Python -version. All right, so right now it's not able to recognize the command Python, so we'll have to figure out. So this means that our path is not correctly set for Python. That's why Windows is not able to recognize this. So from here, to resolve this, we'll have to go to so we'll go to my PC, right click on it, show more options, properties, and then we will go to and we'll go to advanced system settings. So yeah, so and click on environment variables. Now these are the system variables that already are set for my system, and I want to add the Python's location in this variable, the path variable. What I want to do is I double click on it. I set a new variable here, and I want my path, the Python path. Yep. So I'll copy this Python path and I'll paste it here. And I'll say okay, okay, and okay. Now the next thing that I want to do is I open command prompt and I type in again Python version. So this time it's able to recognize that Python is already installed. When I want to run the file that I just created, I again want the file location, which was here. I go to my study and Python, Selenium, right click on this, show more options, properties, go to security, copy this whole thing. And to execute the file, we'll write Python and in double quotes, specify the path. Quotes closed. There's an additional space here. Okay, and I hit enter. So it prints hello world, which is nothing but the code that I had already written in the file, which is being executed using the command prompt. Moving on to the third approach that we want to see is the terminal approach. So if I go to my terminal, so it's currently pointing to the current directory, the Python plus Selenium project directory. So this is my project. So what I want to write here is Python space / and the file name my file1.py, and I hit enter, and it prints the same message. So these three are again the same thing. You're just executing one single file, but the approaches are different. But yes, when you go to the framework level, when you want to build your own framework, then you'll figure out why these are important. And all right, so this was our first program in Python. We just printed hello world and we tried to print it using 3 different approaches. Now moving on, we'll talk about the Python data types. What data types Python has. Moving on, when we want to discuss about data types, what I want to do first is I will create a file, a normal text file. I'll rename it as info.txt. And in this one, I'll just try to write the theoretical part of whatever is required. Okay. So talking about data types, Python has integer, it has float, it has string, it has boolean, and it also has a category complex data types, or you can call it as container data types. Okay, so in this we have list, we have tuples, we have dictionary, we have set. Okay, again, list and tuples are again categorized as sequential. Dictionary is categorized as mapping. Set is categorized as set itself. Okay, so let's talk about integer data type now. Okay, I'll comment this line. So to comment, we just have to press the hash key in front of it, or the shortcut is Control/. Okay, so I'll have this for comment, use Control plus slash. Okay. Now let's talk about integer first. So integer declaration is fairly very simple. You don't have to explicitly define the keyword int a equals to 0 or 1, like how we used to define in Java or C. It's fairly simple here. You just have to type the variable name, say a is equals to 2, b equals to 3. This is how we declare. From now here, I just want to print this. So printing is simple. We have used it. Print a, and I'll give a comma separation. I'll write b. That's simple. You don't have to have anything else here. Just run it. Running is, again, you have to click on this play button or shift F10. Okay. So I'll run it. I get my output 2 and 3. Simple. Moving on. So now we just printed a variable that we had declared. And now what I want to do is I want to understand what type of variable it is, or what's the data type of that variable. We have to write type of the variable. So I want the type of variable a. And what will happen here is this will give me the type of data type a is of. Now I want to print this. So I want to print type of a. Now if I run this, it says class is integer. Okay. Now moving on in this, so there is something called as dynamic typing. So there is something called as dynamic typing. What it means is you can assign a particular variable with any type of value you want. It gets changed during the execution. You don't have to worry about declaring the variable. Say, I have declared a is equals to 2. This is of type integer. Now I can again assign a equals to 3. This is of type float. Okay. Now if I want to check what exactly is being referred to, like, now if I say print the type of variable a, and the same thing I want here also. I want to print here also. I'll comment the above code. What I'm doing here is I just have one variable. I initialized it as 2 first, which was integer. Now I assigned it as 3. Oh, this should be 3.0. I'm assigning it as a float variable. Now I want the type of it. So it should give me that this is integer. Initially it should print integer. Second time it should print float. So you have it here. So first time it printed integer, second time it printed float, because it automatically typecasts it. So this is my dynamic typing concept in Python. Now the next thing is the memory reference. Okay. Now if I say a equals to 5, and I also say b equals to 5. Now how Python works is, let me just write memory reference. Okay, memory reference. So I say a equals 5, b equals 5, and what I want to do here is print the memory location of it. Now say if I to print the memory location, I just have to use another keyword id. So I want to print the id of it, id of a. Now a and b are two different variables, right? So I'll first print the variable reference of the memory reference of the variable a. So if I run this, it gives me a memory reference here. Okay. Memory reference goes here. So this is my initial memory reference. Now I again run this. I get the same memory reference. So there's no change in it, right? Now what I want to do is, since a and b are two different variables, I'll try to print the id of b as well. Now what it gives me will be the same memory reference as what A has, because they both are initialized with the same value. When these are of same value, it has already assigned a same memory location to it. So if I run this, I'm getting the same memory value for both of it. Okay. Now if I want to change B equals to 5, instead of 5, I'll write 6. Okay. And now again, I want to print the ID of A and B. Okay. Now this was the initial reference. Now let's see what happens. Now for the first time, A is on the same memory reference, B is also in the same reference. Again, when I'm printing, A is still on the same, but B's location got changed here because a new value was assigned to B. So the memory reference was changed for the variable B. Moving on to float data type. Okay. Yeah, the declaration is simple. We have talked about it. Say x equals to 2.3, y equals to 3.2.4. Okay. And you want to print it. You want to print the type of it. You have to go print type of x. Sorry, type of x, and just run it. It will print as class float. Okay, rest all memory management and everything else works the same for float. Yes, there is another thing called as arbitrary precision. Let me explain that also. Arbitrary precision. Okay, what this means is when I have a variable x equals to 3, y equals to, I'll put any long number. Okay. Now, if you compare other programming languages where you declare a particular variable of a type, what happens is if you declare this as integer, it would throw an error saying, this is not something I can handle. You need to declare it using some other data type which can handle this big number. Okay. So here what happens is you just give two numbers, and when you are trying to say print, I want to sum them up, say x plus y, and I try to run it. What happens is it would directly print the number, it would add and it would print the same number. You don't have to worry about whether it is integer or a float or a small number or a big number. You just have to pass this value to a print statement and it would directly do it implicitly for you. Moving on to string. Very simple yet very complex because there are a lot of inbuilt functions which are available for string. Strings are nothing but sequence of characters. So if you know from some other language, so character or char is a data type, and again string is another data type, but in Python it's all the same. So if you want to declare a string A is equals to, I'll write it as ABC. But if I write char A is equals to A. Okay. And I can also write it in this way, string B is equals to double quotes ABC. And I can also say typo char underscore B is equals to B. Though I have saved it with different data, I have named the variable as string and character, but all of these belongs to string class. So if you want to check what we have to write print and type of string A, right? String A. Now what would it print? This would directly print classes str. Okay, I'm getting this one. I'll comment this. Yeah. So I'm getting classes string. Now for the I'm going to do the same for the other string types also. the string variables. Okay, so I'm going to copy it, paste it, paste it, paste it. So I'm going to type character A here, paste it. Character B, string goes here, and string B. Now all the 4 outputs should give me as a string class itself, not a character or a string class, just strings. So it all belongs to str class. So this is what I was trying to tell, like there is no separate character class, it's just str class or string class which Python has. Okay. We are going to talk more about these string and string manipulation and the library functions that we have. So we are going to talk more when we touch base on the inbuilt library functions. Okay. And then the next data type is Boolean. Boolean is nothing but true and false. Okay. But I'll say x equals to true and y equals to false. Now I'll have to print. So in Python, what happens is true and false are Boolean, but they have a value assigned to it. True has a value of 1 and false has a value of 0. Now from here, if I want to print my x and my y value, what are you expecting? Should it be true or false, or should it be 1 and 0? Let's execute this. So what it gives me is true and false here. Okay. But what if I do this? X plus x. What are you expecting? Let's run this. So it gives me 2. So by default, the values of comparison, when we do a comparison, so it compares the actual value, but when we do an addition, it is going back and adding the 1 and 1 value. So x was true, so it is 1 and 1, so I'm getting 2 in my output. And there is one more data type which I didn't mention earlier, which is called as none. So none is a different data which is also similar to null. If you are aware of some other language, we have null in Java, so it's kind of similar. Okay, so there's one more thing that we need to talk about, the strings. So there's a keyword immutable. What this means is that something that is created cannot be changed. Okay, so strings, the string class in Python is immutable. That means once we have created a string, we cannot change it. So if we try to modify a string, it won't be the same object, but instead it will create a new object for the string. Okay. To explain this, what I'm trying to do here is, what we'll do here is, we are going to take a variable, say x equals to, I'll say hello. Okay. Now what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to change the first character of hello. X of 0, that means the 0th position of x, you just change it to, I'll say, just change it to y. Okay. Now if I run this, what do I get? And I'll say print x. Okay. Now if I run this, so I'm getting an error here. It says str object does not support item assignments. Now if I have to change this to y, how do I do it? So there's a different way of doing it. I'm just showing it for now, but we'll discuss this once we go through the string manipulation functions. I'll go through these things as well. I'll say a new variable x1 is equals to, I'll say, what do I want here? I want a y here. And what else do I want? I want everything else from the word hello, but not the first h. So I'll write x of 1 colon and I'll close it. This will add y in the first, and then from the first position it will add everything. So 0, this is my 0th position, this is my 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so from first position everything else is added. Now if I try to print this, or instead I should not have this line, I'll comment this one and I will have this print instead. Paste it here. Okay, now if I run this, what happens? Oh, sorry. So I should write x1 here and run. So it says yellow. Okay. So in this video, the last topic that we are going to discuss is the type conversions, or we also call it typecasting. Type conversion. So to explain this, I'll take two variables. One is x, which is an integer, and I'll take a y, which is of type float. So y is 3.5. So x is what? X is integer, and y is float. Okay. Now the next what I'm doing is I'll take a variable, say sum equals to x plus y. Now what's happening here? So this scenario is called an implicit typecasting. Okay. Now what's happening here is x is of type integer, y is of type float. But while we do the sum operation on it, what happens is it is automatically converted to float. The x variable is implicitly converted to float. So let's see what is the output for it. Print, and I'll write sum. I'll comment the other part of my code, control slash, and I'll run it. So it gives me 8.5, which is the sum of x and y. This is when the Python's interpreter automatically converts it. But you can also do it using an explicit conversion. Okay. How to do that? I'm saying sum is equals to, I want to convert x to a float variable. So I'll write float of x and then plus y. And again, the same thing, I'll print it. Print sum. I'll comment the other part of it. I'll say slash and I'll run it. It also gives me an output of 8.5. So either the Python takes care of it automatically. If not, if you want to typecast it, do it using the keyword float. And similarly, if you want to convert a float to int, you have to use the keyword int. So say so I'll end this video here and we'll discuss a new topic in the next video. It would be around input and output and basic operations in Python.